Okay.
My name is Lisa Evans. I'm with Wells Fargo. I'm a business banker. And it resonates with me with Wells Fargo because really, when it comes down to it, there are a lot of successes in the African American community, in the Black community. But this segment of the population still continues to strive for economic equality. And when it really, comes down to it, Wells Fargo has supported and collaborated with organizations like the AFRO, the U.S. Black Chambers, the NAACP, the National Urban League, in order to support their growth in helping uh, Black people get what I call economic parity. So, as a matter of fact, Wells Fargo donated a grant for $50 million to the NAACP this year, and it's the largest grant that the civil rights organization has ever received. So we're putting our money where our mouth
Expo. I mean, the theme is right on time, closing the divide with work, wages, and wealth. I'm excited to be here, and I hope you're enjoying yourself.
Alrighty, so I am going to be talking about mental health awareness in the workplace. There's a couple of different ways I could tackle this topic. I could tackle it from the aspect of describing different mental health conditions that can occur or appear in the workplace. And then I could also tackle it from the aspect of how employers can assist in supporting the mental health and well being of their employees. And I'm going to tackle it from the second aspect, given the theme of the expo, which is people in the workplace. And so I'm going to tackle it from the aspect of how work can impact our mental health and what employers can do to support people in their mental well-being. So the World Health Organization, which is a global organization that deals with different health aspects of people, has a saying that there's no health without mental health. And that's something that I thoroughly agree with. We spend so much time talking about our physical health and well-being and exercising and things of that nature. And we don't really spend a lot of time focusing on our mental health and well-being. And it is something that is just as important as our physical well-being. And when it comes to the workplace, we spend so much of our time at work, so much time focusing on the things that we're doing to be productive and to earn money that, it has a strong impact on our mental health and well-being in the place that we work, the people that we're working with. All of those things contribute to our mental well-being or lack thereof. And so I'm just going to talk about different ways in which we can focus on how we can create mental health friendly work environments and how people who are in the work environment can do things to kind of support their own mental well-being, and how to adjust things if need be, how to advocate for yourself, and how supervisors and business owners and things can really support their people as they're the ones who are helping them grow their businesses and make money. So I want to say that a lot of times when we talk about mental health, um, we're using it interchangeably with mental illness, right? So when people say, I want to talk about my mental health or I'm working on my mental health, they're really often referring to a mental health condition or a mental illness. And I want to start off by saying that, and that's part of the reason why the subject is often taboo, right? People say, I don't want to talk about mental health because they think it means that something is wrong with them. And that's not the case at all. Everyone has mental health, just as everyone has physical health. It just refers to your state of emotional and psychological well being. And so everyone has that. It just so happens that for some people, they have conditions that occur that make their mental health not as positive as others. There are some people who live with what we call mental health conditions. Sometimes they're referred to as disorders. Sometimes they're referred to as mental illnesses, such as depression or anxiety, or some people live with psychotic disorders. Some people live with substance abuse disorders or eating disorders. All of these things fall under the umbrella of mental health conditions. And these are things that anyone that we're dealing with or working with can be experiencing at any time. There's a stat that comes from the National Alliance on Mental Illness that states that 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health condition at some point in their life. So that means that if you're in an office or a workplace where there's 100 people, then probably at least 20 of them have or had or will experience some type of mental health condition in their life. And then the stat goes on to say that 1 in 20 people experience a serious mental illness in their life. So that's someone who's dealing with a serious anxiety disorder or major depressive disorder or a psychotic disorder. So again, if you're working with 100 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, there's people in that group who are having these experiences that you may not even know about, but those experiences are impacting how they show up at work, how they're able to work, how they're able to be productive, etc. A lot of times we think that people who are living with mental health conditions can't work or aren't able to work, and that's not always the case. Sometimes they may need to be on medication. Sometimes they may need some type of adjustments to their schedule or things like that. And those are things that are very reasonable and possible for employers to adjust depending on the type of job. But those are things that we need to be mindful of when we're working with people. There are people who, when you're living with these type of disorders, being in a workplace that is unhealthy or unfriendly or hostile can just exacerbate these disorders, right? Or could create them in the first place. Something that falls under a category of mental health concern is also stress and burnout. So, in the last couple of years, burnout has actually been recognized as a condition that people that falls under the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so, if there's a workplace that is creating very stressful conditions, that is, people are being overworked, they're being underpaid, they're not being recognized, they're being asked to work long hours, extreme overtime. Uh, there's racism, there's sexism, There's other type of isms involved in the workplace. All of that is going to be contributing factors to people having overwhelming stress, to people getting burnt out, and to people maybe developing mental health conditions such as anxiety or depression. So we really want to talk about how we can develop workplaces that support rather contribute to individuals' mental health. One of the things that we can do is from a policy standpoint, what are the policies that are being created? How flexible are they? When we talk about paid leave, are we offering paid leave in sufficient amounts so that people are able to take care of the things they need to take care of in their life? Are they able to go to doctor's appointments? Are they able to take mental health days? Are they able to care for their loved ones? A lot of people are caretakers as some people are in what they call the sandwich generation, where they're taking care of children and they're taking care of elders. And so how are we as employers supporting our people who are having these life circumstances so that they're able to work and do what they need to do to earn a living, but also not getting overwhelmed? And so, when it comes to taking time off, when it comes to recognition, are we recognizing people in the ways that they should be when they're doing a good job? Are we giving promotional opportunities? Are we paying a living wage and a competitive salary? A lot of times when people are being underpaid, that very much contributes to not being mentally well, because you're worried about how you're going to pay your bills, how you're going to take care of your family, how you're going to eat. Um, are we paying people enough so that they're able to live in a good environment? If you are only paid enough so that you have to live in, a poverty-stricken area or a crime-ridden area, that's stressful. That's going to contribute to you not being mentally healthy as well. So there's a lot of things that take place outside of the workplace, but that a good employer is going to be cognizant of when it comes to how their people are able to show up to work. Something else that I like to talk to people about when it comes to mental health in the workplace is the fact that a lot of times when someone isn't performing well or seems to not be performing well, they get written off as a poor performer without there being more questions asked and more digging into what is the real issue. Sometimes a person is coming off as a poor performer when they really are dealing with some type of mental health challenge instead. So, say, for example, if someone has become depressed, so it's difficult for them to get out of bed in the morning, even, or difficult for them to do their regular morning routine of like shower, brush teeth, etc. But they're not taking leave, right? Because maybe they don't have enough paid leave or they feel compelled to go to work. But because they're having that experience, they're coming into work 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late. And now it's looked at as, oh, they're tardy all the time, or someone is dealing with something and they're starting all of a sudden to miss deadlines, or they're starting to, be snappy with people, things like that. These are things that 9 times out of 10, most employers are going to automatically contribute to, this person has become a poor performer. But if you ask more questions and ask, is something going on, you may learn that that person really just needs help. They just need support. They just need, to be able to work a flexible schedule, or they need to be able to, sometimes it's easier to come in earlier when there's less people at work and then leave earlier. I think as employers, it's incumbent upon us to be more flexible when we can be. There's some roles that, you can't really be that flexible in, but I think to the extent that we can be, we should be flexible in how we're allowing people to show up, because that very much impacts their mental health. Another thing is reducing the stigma. So there's a huge stigma around mental health and conversations around mental illness and mental well-being. And one very big way that you can create a more mental health friendly environment in the workplace is to reduce that stigma. Make sure that you're acknowledging that you support your employees' mental well being. Make sure that you're allowing them to take time off when they need to. You are, if someone needs to take a leave of absence for their mental health, you're treating it just the same as if someone needed to take a leave of absence for their physical health. There's no like down talking or thinking that they're weak or they're incapable because they're dealing with a mental health concern. The language that we use is also very important. So making sure that we're not, using negative language around mental health conditions or making offhanded comments like, oh, this weather is being bipolar, or oh, why is that person acting schizo? Like those things are very negative, and the words that we use matter. So if you have an employee or a colleague who is living with one of these types of conditions, or they have a loved one that is, when they hear you talking like that and referring to conditions like that, it makes it an unsafe and unwelcoming environment for them in the workplace. So we want to make sure that we're mindful of how we're treating people, mindful of the language that we're using. You know, when you talk about your benefits that you're offering, are you offering benefits that support mental health and well-being as well? Are you talking about it during your open enrollment periods? Are you having vendors and benefit providers that support them? Do you have an employee assistance program? Have you trained people in mental health first aid or other types of mental well-being training, so that if someone in the workplace is dealing with something like that, they're trained to know how to talk to them? Are you training your managers in how to have conversations and give feedback in a way that is positive and reflective and not negative, and making it more stressful or uncomfortable for people? So all of these things are just ways that we can be more mindful of how we're impacting people's mental health and well-being in the workplace. Also keeping your word, right? So there's something that's referred to as a psychological contract, and there's a psychological contract that is inherent in the relationship between employers and employees. And part of that is keeping your word. So if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you people have the expectation that they're going to be treated fairly, that they're going to be paid fairly, that their employer is going to support them in a way that is relatable and comparable to how they're showing up at work. And so, you know, when you're not doing that, it's like you're breaking that contract. And so what happens is you get into a vicious cycle of, well, if you're breaking the contract with me, now I'm going to break the contract with you. I'm not going to show up as my best self because I don't feel like I can. We also want to be very mindful of how current events and things that happen outside of the workplace impact mental health. So, there's a lot going on in the world right now. We've had COVID-19 that we've had to live through. We've had a lot of, police brutality and racial reckoning. And, there's still a very huge wealth gap. All of those things contribute to people's mental health and well-being. And it's something that people can't turn off when they cross the threshold of work, or when they flip their laptop on, or however they enter the workplace. That doesn't suddenly disappear. Things that impact us socially still show up when we show up at work. So when events happen, like with George Floyd or Breonna Taylor, or the Stop Asian Hate movement, things like that. How are you as an employer having conversations about that? Are you allowing your people to express themselves? And are you having forums for open conversation, and allowing people to, take the time that they need if something like that is just really weighing on them and they feel like they need to take a day? Like, are you open to having those conversations and allowing those things to happen so that people can feel supported by their employers and supported in their mental health and well-being as far as that goes. Um, Last but certainly not least, I would say definitely look out for yourself. So I'm talking about how employers can support their employees, but it's also very important for employees to support themselves. So if you're feeling like something isn't right, if you're feeling like, you know, something in the workplace isn't right, if you're dealing with, we talk a lot about microaggressions, and especially, by this being the Black Business Expo and it being developed by the AFRO newspaper, it's a lot of Black people deal with microaggressions in the workplace every single day. And that those microaggressions contribute greatly to a reduction in mental health and well-being. So how are we showing up there? How are we as employers saying that these type of behaviors will not be tolerated? Are we creating inclusive workplaces so that we're letting people know that, racism won't be tolerated, sexism won't be tolerated, anti-LGBTQ actions won't be tolerated, all of those things. So, inclusion is also a very high factor in how we're able to create mental health friendly environments. I think that, I've said a lot in a short period of time, but I hope that I've been able to kind of just give you some food for thought around how a lot of the different things that occur in the workplace contribute to someone's mental health and well-being, and how employers can support people in developing a mental health friendly workplace, and how employees can support themselves as well by advocating for the things that they need in the workplace, and not sitting back and really just like taking negative treatment. If you need time, tell your employer that you need time. If you're dealing with an issue that is impacting your work productivity, let your employer know that. Don't let them just sit around and assume that you're a poor performer when there's really something else going on. It's incumbent upon both sides, both people in the relationship, so to speak, to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to support the mental health and well-being of everyone involved. And so I think that, with just a little more open conversations and learning and understanding on both sides, we'll be able to eventually really get rid of the stigma of mental health and mental illness, and have these open conversations, which will in the end be better for everyone.
Hi, I'm Norma Hollis, and what a delight to be with you. I am known as the godmother of authenticity because I spent my entire life understanding what it means to be authentic in this world. I'm so delighted at the journey that I've had, and it's been a very unusual one, and I'm going to share a little bit with you about my journey and how it can impact you. because my journey was all about listening to my inner voice and allowing my inner voice to lead me. You know, most of us on the planet, we look at our 70, 80, 90 years on the planet and we figure out how can we make the most money. That's what society guides us to do, to be on the planet, to make as much money as you can and spend as much of it as you can as well. Well, I took a totally different approach, and I tell you, it was a little unusual and people did not understand it, but it's so nice to see things from hindsight, because my approach to the world from the very beginning was to listen to my inner voice, because I had a strong voice in me talking to me all the time. Now, nobody in my family understood it, and many of them still don't understand it, but they see the results of it. So let me give you a little historical stuff first before I go into my particular journey. Because one of the things that I've learned now in looking at hindsight is examining how much energy I and my contemporaries, the baby boomer, obviously, what we did to try to make a change in the world. I remember when Dr. King was murdered. I was in college at the time. And when I heard that, I was so upset because I didn't understand how can people murder someone who's doing so much, so great good for the world. I mean, I led the march in Michigan State University and talked about it for a long time, and it was a real driving force in my life. And I wrote poetry a lot in my 20s, and I asked a question in one of my poems called The Masquerade is, how do we get this masquerade of life? It seems that, you know, there's so many different values and so many different ways of looking at the world. And so many of us, my degree's in early childhood, my first degree, and that's where I learned a lot about human nature and human design. And I began to look at it in the way of understanding what happens to us when we go from happy-go-lucky preschool children to adults that are just not happy with the world. You know, as I mentioned, my degree was in early childhood, and I directed Head Start programs for years. And then I went to be an entrepreneur. I was actually the first Black woman to be a speaker, to own a speaker bureau for Black speakers. And I met so many people who came to me and said, Norma, I've lost myself. I've been in corporate America or on this whatever job for 10, 20, or 30 years, and I had to be who they wanted me to be. And I've lost my authenticity. And they knew at the time that I dealt with authenticity. I had a bureau, I was training speakers. And I always wondered, what is the difference? What happened to those happy preschoolers that had such a great time in their very young years to be so unhappy and confused when they got older? Well, it caused me to do a lot of research into human nature, into humanity and moving forward. And it's really clear to me kind of what happens, because we're only here for that 70, 80, 90 years. And we forget of what happened way before we got here and what the potential is way after we leave. Because as I look now, I see young people the age I was when Dr. King was born doing the same thing I was doing. And as I look now, I see there's not much change. We think there's change, but it's just happening so slow, and we're kind of behind the 8 ball. So how can we make a difference? How can we really do something different? I'm convinced we cannot beat them at their own game. We have to do our own game. And my game was listening to my inner voice. It's my inner voice that led me to develop the authenticity grid, which I'm going to explain to you in just a minute. But what's so important about listening to the inner voice is that the creator who sent me here, I call him God, knew how the world was going and prepared me to be prepared for life where it is right now. Because right now, authenticity is a big issue. People don't understand it. Be authentic, be yourself. But how do you really do that? And why is it so important, particularly in today's world when artificial intelligence is right in front of us? You know, the world changes regularly. We as human beings even are changing. We're moving now from Homo sapiens to becoming Homo luminous, which means we have greater ability to listen to our inner voice. You have children coming into the planet now who are much different than the ones when I was coming up, because they're these crystal and indigo and rainbow children who are a little different, a little more connected to the universe, a little more connected to Creator, a little more gifted, have a lot more ability to know their purpose and to follow their purpose while they're here on the planet. They do strange and unusual things and they baffle their parents, but listen to them because they know more than what they realize. And my journey in listening to my voice has led me to dissect myself. I was 28 and realized I did everything my parents had said do. I had the husband with a good job. We had cars. We had a house on a hill. We had money in the bank, all those great things. I was miserable because I wasn't being me. I became my parents' version of who they thought I should be. So I had to step out of that path and spend some time to dissect myself. And that's when I developed the authenticity grid. And why it's so important right now is that one of the most important things you can do as a business owner, you can do in a job, you can do for your children, is know yourself and understand your gifts and talents. Understand the gifts and talents that were given to you at the time that you were born, so you can use them on the planet. Because what's happening in the future is creativity is going to rule. It's not the intellect so much, because artificial intelligence is replacing intellect in many ways, but it cannot replace creativity. It cannot replace that 0.01% of creativity that makes you different from everyone else in the world. That's your authenticity. So I hope you get a gist of what I'm talking about how important it is to be yourself, how important it is to step into the part of you that's different from everyone else, and how it's also important to listen to how the inner voice speaks to you to connect you with those parts that are different. You know, I didn't seek out when I was a child to be an authenticity expert. People would ask me as a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? My answer was always, I don't know. God hasn't told me yet. So what's God telling you about what you're going to be when you grow up? Or even more important, who you're going to be when you grow up. The authenticity grid can help you get a handle on who you are, what you're going to do, and who you're going to be as an adult. So whatever age you're at right now, the grid can help you. Some of my friends say it's the answer to a lot of things on the planet. Let me explain it to you so you can understand the energy. I refer to my authenticity grid as an energy management tool. When you connect with it and understand it and get involved with it and integrate it in your life, it becomes a partner with you to help you to be more authentic, to help you to be your best self, to help you move yourself forward, to also help you to find your strength amongst all your vulnerabilities. So let me explain the grid to you. It was what I decided to dissect myself. And what I found is that I have an inner voice, you see here, that no one hears but me. I have an outer voice, which is how people perceive me when they see me. And I have an expressive voice, which is who I become in the world. When I finished creating this, after 30 years of research, I owned my speaker bureau, and I went all across the United States to different places, people that had signed up to be in my bureau, and did a presentation to share my authenticity grid. And what I learned is the way I saw myself, everyone saw themselves as well. So it's probably you too. Now on the side, you'll see the words think, communicate, do. Those are actually dynamics, we call them. We call the inner, outer, expressive domains. The individual boxes are dimensions, and the think, communicate, do are dynamics. So let me explain to you about each of the dimensions of the grid and see where you see yourself. See where you see your strengths and see where you see maybe you could strengthen up and fortify yourself. What we ask you to consider doing is to tweak one thing in your life. Tweak just one thing in one dimension. Try it on for 30 to 90 days and see how it impacts life for you. See what changes come about when you tweak one thing for 30 to 90 days. So let's start with intuition, which is your sixth sense. You know, it's through your intuition that we experience the world. Children start out experience the world through what they can touch. They put things in their mouth all the time. They're tactile. They want to touch things. And your intuition is your connection to that inner voice that you have. If you're not that strong on your intuition, your inner voice, let me give you a tip of how you can connect, because that's where authenticity begins, in your inner voice, particularly in intuition. And what you can do to strengthen your intuition is to consider how you answer the question every day that you ask yourself. You ask yourself 3 questions. What time is it? What am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? And you ask those every single day. So examine how the answer comes to you. It comes generally through one of your senses. It's you taste it, you smell it, you think it, you feel it, you see it, you hear it. Maybe you remember how you felt when you bought something one time. Maybe you have a taste in your mouth. Maybe you have a vision. How do you get the answer? When you say, what time is it? Is it your sense that looks at the outside and determines by the sun, what time is it? Is it the clock? Is it visual? How does the answer come to you? When you step back and consider that, then you have a sense of how your inner voice speaks to you, and you can fortify it. Successful life that's connected to your creator and what your purpose is largely connected to your intuition. So you want to fortify that. Now, this whole dynamic of think are all things given to you at birth. You are given intuition and a sixth sense at birth. How do you develop it? Now, when you get a sense and get an idea of your intuition, you filter it through your integrity. Your integrity is your value system. You communicate to the world who you are by your values. You show your values in the things that you do. I love to ask people, what is one value that would make a difference in our world? What is one value that as a world we all agree on? Nobody can give me one. The closest we've gotten is compassion. But a lot of people are not compassionate. I think Ukraine's been so successful because they're going on one value. And that value is you're not taking my land. And that has taken them a long way. So what's your one value? What's your family value? What's the value that you think could make a difference in the world, and how are you expressing that? Then that filters down to inspiration. Inspiration is your drive. That's your do. What will you do? Now, I like to separate inspiration from motivation. When I have my bureau, everybody wants to be a motivational speaker. And I would advise them that motivation is the outside coming in. But nothing happens unless the inside takes it out. And that's inspiration. How do you inspire yourself? How do you inspire others? If you're in business, it's important that you know how to inspire your team. That's how you keep them moving forward, their drive that they have to make a difference and to follow your dream and to support you in your dream. And the way the inner voice works is that the idea comes through your intuition. It flows freely through your value system. If it's a part of your values, you may or may not be inspired to act on it. And that's where authenticity begins, in your inner voice. So I encourage you to be connected to your inner voice. Now, authenticity is stronger when your inner voice and outer voice give the same message. The outer voice, again, is how people perceive you in the world. There are three dimensions to the outer voice: net wellness, net work, and net wealth. If you notice, the word net is in front of all of them because it's the combination of things that make that real. For example, net wellness having to do with holistic balance, and that's multiple aspects to that. We know about your health and your dental, but it's also your exercise, the water you drink, the food that you eat, your mental state, your spirituality. All of those, make an impact on your net wellness. Now, net wellness is a think because you're given a set of DNA at the time that you were born. How do you take care of it? That's what makes a difference in your net wellness. Net wellness is critical for energy and longevity. So you want to be clear on that and ask yourself, what one thing can you tweak for 30 to 90 days to strengthen your energy and your longevity? Now, the very middle of the grid is network. Network is your relationships. It has to do with quality and quantity of your associations. By quality, you need quality people around you who are going to be honest with you, be real, be authentic with you, not just yes people that tell you what they think you want to hear, but those that are going to be honest with you. Sometimes it's family, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to go outside of that. And then there is quantity network. Quantity are all the people that you know. They're not your best friends. You're not going to go to them to give them your best secrets or ask their advice for things, but you might call them for something that's maybe smaller, where you need some feedback on, or you want to know maybe where you're in a new city and when you broke your shoe, you want to know where to go to a shoemaker. So that's your quantity. It's the quality of relationships that you have and the quantity. And we talk about network as the network that is the people that you know, quality and quantity. Your networking, as you meet more quantity people that may become quality, and the net of your work. Part of my work talks about the theme and the thread of your life. If you look at the net of your work, all the jobs that you've had, maybe you'll see a theme in there. And that gives you a little bit more alignment and awareness of what your purpose is and how you can move yourself through your life a little easier, and what the thread is and how that is affecting you. Now, on the do side of the net of the other outer voice is net wealth. And everywhere I go, I ask people, what does net wealth mean? And everybody says the same thing, no matter what country I'm in. And they all say it's about money. And I suggest to you from an authenticity perspective, it's about abundance and joy. What really brings you joy in life? You know, when I had my speaker bureau, I met lots of people who had gobs of money, but they weren't happy. Names that you would know if I would tell you, but I'm not going to tell you. But a lot of people are like that. So net wealth has to do with abundance. You can have a lot of money and not be joyful and not be happy. And then I've met a lot of people who have very little money and are filled with joy. Amazing, isn't it? Because society will tell you that net wealth is money and you need to go get as much as you can by any means necessary. Beat out somebody else, be competitive, take their money. That's the kind of the tone that society gives you. But that's not our tone. That's not appropriate for us. We have to do it a little differently if we want to make a difference in the world. So find your joy and your abundance and live within it. Find ways to be more joyful and particularly help your children to find their abundance. Now, the expressive voice is who you have become and how you live your life on a day-to-day basis. When I was researching this and looking into it, a lot of people talked about inner and outer from whatever terms they used it, but very few people added the third dimension to it. When I finished the work of inner and outer as I was doing, I said, but that's not enough. That's not really who I am. It doesn't really affect what I'm doing right now. And that's when I came up with the expressive voice. And the first dimension of the expressive voice in the think category is legacy. And that's your gifts and talents. And we look at gifts and talents from three different angles. One is your physical gifts, the body that you're in. You think about someone like Shaquille O'Neal. Now, the body he's in, he could not have designed to be a ballerina. He wasn't in that kind of body, right? Same with Simone Biles. She couldn't be a basketball player. She didn't have the height or the strength for that. So the body that you're in has something to do with what it is that you're to do. And if you're Black like me, you have a different role than people who are pale skinned. And your role is more to change the world, but not in the way that they tell you. Change the world by going within and understanding what it is your role to do to change the world. So I also learned that the number of children who get plastic surgery increases regularly every 10 years by over 10%. But why, give children a value of changing their face, their body, just because they're getting bullied or something else has happened? Not a real good value to give a child. So be thinking about these things for your own children. Help them find their gifts and talents. Other area of gifts and talents are spiritual gifts. There's speaking gifts, signifying gifts, and serving gifts. You can Google that up, look it up. You'll learn a lot about that. It's important to know what those are. Your church probably talks a lot about that as well. But what I want to focus on for a minute is what I call wisdom gifts, the gifts that gives you your wisdom and your intelligence. It's based on the work of Dr. Howard Gardner, who in 1983 identified 9 areas on ways in which children learn to help teachers change the way they do their classrooms, so children could learn more aligned with how they learn. So you can look up Dr. Howard Gardner, but when you do, ask for the 9 gifts of intelligence that he found, because they're only going to give you 8. The 9th one is called existential. I could not even find it when I was doing my research back in the 80s and 90s. It's out there now, but you have to ask, because existential, it's like they don't want you to be your natural self. Existential, which many of us African-American Blacks is a deeper connection to source, a deeper connection to the universe, the ability to commune with animals, for example, kind of the wooey side of life. And that's who we are when we first come into the planet, and then we get slowly indoctrinated to following the rules that society says we're supposed to follow. I'm suggesting you follow your internal rules, the rules that are given to you by your creator, the rules that you get through your intuition, the rules that are based on your natural gifts and talents. I'm not going to go over them for you. I'm going to give you a little homework to go and look for Dr. Howard Gardner's 9 multiple gifts of intelligence. If you want to know more about yourself, that's one way to do it. I'll give you another way in just a minute. The next one is likability. Likability is on the communicate side, because you communicate to the world who you are by your personality, by how you show up. Now, we've had a lot of conversation in my team about likability, because I had an introvert on one of my classes, and he said, but my personality is not big. I'm an introvert, but I'm very likable. So we're talking now about just likability. Is it empathy? Is it that compassion we talked about? Is it rapport building? One person suggested, it's what people say about you when you leave the room. That's interesting, huh? But what's your likability factor? How likable are you? How much do you build rapport with people? How much do you connect with people? That's really important for your own authenticity, and recognizing that our own likability modifies and changes. We don't say to our parents the same thing we say something to our child or to our boss. If we're saying the same thing, we may say it a little differently based on who we're talking to. But that's still part of our likability. So you don't have to be the same. That's just who I am. You can be many other sides of yourself as well and still be very authentic. And then the final dimension is lifestyle, which has to do with your habits, your day-to-day habits. And this is where I suggest you tweak one thing. Find one thing in these 9 dimensions of authenticity that maybe you feel a little less strong in. Maybe you feel a little vulnerable. And what can you tweak? Another way that I use this grid, it is a self-coaching tool. When I have something in my life that's challenging me, I go to my grid and say, where does this fit on the grid? I was in Barbados a few years ago, and my host was not happy with my behavior, and that he didn't explain to me why. I had to kind of figure it out. And when I went to my grid, I said, oh, that's probably in the likability dimension. And what I've learned about my grid is that if you have something you need to tweak in your life and you're not quite sure how to do it, if you tweak an adjacent dimension, you can make a change. So likability is here. I asked myself, are you living in your gifts and talents? At the time I was writing and not speaking. I said, you got to speak more, Norma, then you'll be more likable. I asked, is your network appropriate? And I realized that actually I needed to join some more groups. I had just finished my 30 years of writing and I was kind of isolated. And I joined 3 groups that made a difference. And then I asked myself, how's my lifestyle? Are my habits appropriate? And I knew I needed to make a change. And I made those changes, and all of a sudden, my likability improved. How can you improve? You know, you can find this grid and look at it in more detail at my website, normahollis.com. normahollis.com. And I would love to invite you to my weekly free Tuesday events. It's called Authentic Life Networking Circles. And on that call, it's 1 hour, 5 o'clock Pacific time on Tuesdays. We have a guest speaker who spends about 10 minutes talking about one of the dimensions. And then you get a thought-provoking question. And we put you into small rooms to discuss that question and how it impacts your life. People are loving it because it's not networking about how to make more money or how to market or anything about business, because if you're not authentic, you're not doing your best in the world anyway. So I help you be more authentic. And you network and meet people who are just like you, like-minded people who are authentic as well and seeking to be more authentic. You can sign up by going to giftfromnorma.com, giftfromnorma.com. And look out for me. You know, I'm on all the social media platforms. You'll love my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Authenticity Movement. And you'll see me also on Instagram and Facebook, of course, and definitely LinkedIn. So look for Norma Hollis or Norma T. Hollis and give me a shout out. Tell me you saw me on this program and we'll reach out. And stay tuned because I got a lot more to share. I speak quite a bit. My speaking platform will be shared with you on my Instagram pages. And, you know, I'm also looking for people to teach and coach my work. I certify people as coaches, as speakers and facilitators, and we're just about to go into corporate where there is a great need from the Great Resignation and how authenticity can really help organizations make a big difference in their world. So if you want to join a team of people who's really definitely combined and very focused on making a difference in the world and doing it with like-minded people and doing it with the goal of following their inner voice and not just following the dollars, because if you follow your voice, the money will come. I'm telling you, I'm in a place right now, and I'm not going to spill all my beans, but everything I've actually wanted in life is just showering down on me right now. And I think that's because I listened to my inner voice, because there was a plan set for me, a purpose that I didn't know anything about. I just followed when they said, what are you going to do in your life? And I said, God hasn't told me. But I just followed and let God unfold it. And it is unfolded in some phenomenal ways. So, you know, come on down and join my Gift from Norma and be in my class, or follow me on social media. And I'll let some of all this goodness rub off on you. I look forward to it. So stay tuned. I'll be speaking next very soon. And if you're on my social medias, you'll see where. I look forward to meeting you. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share.
to the poets and the perfectionists, the warriors and the worriers, the timely and the timeless. We're Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we're transforming healthcare for the future, for today, for the communities we serve. This is our pledge to you.
Well, I am so excited. Thank you for the invitation to join you for this wonderful conference and expo. I am Stacy Gordon, and I am joined by Dr. Thatch. So I think what we'll do is just sort of start off by introducing ourselves. So I guess since I'm talking, I'll start. I'm Stacy Gordon, and I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. I actually spend quite a bit of time really working as a inclusive workplace culture consultant, because I'm all about the inclusion. I'm a keynote speaker, author, facilitator of learning, and an executive advisor on strategies for workplace inclusion. So the theme here is all about inclusion. I'm also the founder of Rework Work, and it is my goal to create belonging at work. So just a little bit about me so you know who you're talking to. I've been invited to partner with organizations like American Express, GE, ADP. I've been published in Forbes, Fast Company, Harvard Business Review, been an adjunct professor, and my unconscious bias course on LinkedIn Learning was the #1 most watched course for the LinkedIn Learning platform. So, oh, and I guess also I mentioned the book, right? Unbiased, Addressing Unconscious Bias at Work. So those are all the things that I have done when we mention that, so that you get to have a chance to know who we are and the expertise that we are bringing to you. So I'm going to take it away and throw it over to Dr. Thatch.
Thank you, Stacy. It's always a pleasure to be on the stage with you, and I'm so excited to share the virtual platform and stage with you this morning. My name is Dr. Thiele Thatch. My PhD is in public policy, administration, and law. I have over 25 years of human resources experience from numerous Fortune 500 companies, ranging from Cablevision to Live Nation to UPS, and most recently Paychex. In those organizations, I've served as the head of HR, director of HR, chief diversity officer, head of diversity, so I've held numerous roles. And I'm currently the owner of Thiele Thatch Consulting, which specializes in human resources and equity consulting, focused on an inclusive lens for small businesses, entrepreneurs, and franchisees. And so I'm really excited to be here this morning. I have an upcoming book titled The Diversity Dilemma, which kind of talks about some of the things we're going to talk about today. Stacy and I have partnered numerous times, and one of my favorite partnerships is with the Stacy with the Inclusionomics podcast that we did a few years ago. So I also teach courses on race, gender, public policy at 2 different universities. And today I'm really excited to be here to speak about work, women, wealth, and workplace.
Wages.
And wages.
Yes. All the W's.
All the W's.
Well, and that was why, so diving in, reason I thought it would be a really great conversation, because we've done the Inclusionomics podcast. And so we thought, let's bring that to this conference, because when we think about the fact of inclusionomics, what is it? We're talking about the economics of inclusion, how work, wages, and wealth, right? Theme of the conference, but how that's impacted by a lack of inclusion. And there are so many examples that we could give, but we don't have a lot of time today, so we're going to give a few. But I thought what we could do is kind of dive into some of the conversations that, if you have watched our Inclusionomics podcast or listened in, you would have heard some of these concepts. And we talk a lot about the idea, I actually thought the one we could start off with is the Crown Act. So some people, I'm hoping the audience, right, will probably know what we're talking about. However, depending upon who we're talking to, what I have found is that a lot of people do not realize how people of color, and mainly Black women, have been impacted at work by hair discrimination. They don't even realize that the Crown Act exists or why we even needed it in the first place. So I wanted to discuss the impact of Black women being excluded at work based upon their hair. And that was one of our podcast topics. But obviously, just recently, Dove has created, they've kind of joined with the Crown Act, and they're really trying to create awareness about what this is. And so before I dive into the free resources and all the things we can give you, I wanted to give Dr. Thiele a chance to kind of talk about the Crown Act, because with a background in public policy, she's kind of the perfect person to talk about this.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I get so many people when I share that I have a PhD in public policy, their eyes glaze over. So I thought, eyes glazed over when I talked about human resources. So now with public policy, trying to connect the dots has been really fun, honestly. And so I actually had the opportunity to be in the rooms when Senator Holly Mitchell was working on passing the Crown Act. And so the Crown Act, it's an acronym which stands for Creating a Respectable and Open World for Natural Hair. And it prohibits racial discrimination based on hair texture and protective hairstyles. And the Crown Act was passed out of the need to protect women, Black women like myself. I mean, my hair is basically in its natural state right now. And what is so impactful about the Crown Act is that, in other policies, is that when we create these policies, we're pretty much telling the world that we have to create a policy to ensure that we will not be discriminated against based on our natural hair. So that's what the Crown Act did. The Crown Act was a necessity. It had to be passed because prior to the Crown Act, women, Black women, people with natural texturized hair were being discriminated in the workplace, and they still are, honestly, because you pass a law or because you have pass a policy does not stop that discrimination. So I hope that helped. So that's where policy and human resources and equity connect, and just really grateful for the Crown Act for giving us the power to really push back on any discrimination in regards to our natural hair in the workplace and beyond.
And it can be hard to identify it, right? So, and I hope that Google has fixed this, but it used to be that when you would Google professional hairstyles, white women would come up with straight blonde hair. And that was the images that would mostly come up. And then if you Googled unprofessional hairstyles, Black women would come up with their hair kind of like mine and little twists, and that's what you would see. And so what was happening is that women were being passed over for advancement, were not being hired in the first place because their hair was considered unprofessional. We have dress codes that were, stopping individuals from being able to come to work with their hair in a natural style. And so what does that have to do with the economics? Well, I don't know about you, but if I can't get a job, that's definitely impacting my pocketbook, right? If I can't be advanced in my workplace because people look at me and don't consider me to be representative of the face of their sales team, let's say, and they won't allow me to have those opportunities to make those commissions and those additional sales and to be able to advance within the workplace. So this is how the Crown Act has really been needed for us to be able to have something to be able to kind of, put our teeth into to say, hey, this is what is happening. And then how do you identify it? It comes up, like we know when it's happening. We've seen it, we feel it. People make comments. So, there's a lot more we could say about it, but we want to not spend the entire time talking about the Crown Act. So
I want to share an important part that something that we've experienced since COVID in regards to the Crown Act, and it's around microaggressions. So we have found that a lot of Black women, there's been research that's coming out still, that a lot of Black women did not want to go back to work because of the microaggressions around their hair and other parts of their, anatomy and comments because of, not feeling comfortable. So a lot of women are struggling with getting back into the workplace because now that they're at home, they feel safe. They don't have people asking, can I touch your hair, or what's happening with your hair? And just really quickly, just, woman to woman here, it takes a lot of work to maintain your hair every day. Okay, so that in itself has a monetary implication, having to straighten your hair or process your hair so that you can show up and be acceptable at work, air quotes for those who are listening. That goes into some of the monetary issues. So, hey, if I could stay at home in my bonnet and work from home and be left alone, but that may also have implications where you may lose your job if you try to stay at home too much, right? So it's a complex issue, our hair, and we talked about it on Inclusionomics. The episode was, I think, you should have combed your hair, or you should have done your hair or something. But anyhow, we laugh, but it can be very stressful.
Let's laugh so that we won't cry, because I will say, even before coming on today, I normally wear my hair in crochet braids. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you will see I've posted for Women's History Month. I posted all my different hairstyles that I have had over the last few months, really. That's not even years, it's like months. And I normally have crochet braids in, and today I'm wearing my hair natural. And I got ready to sit down and I thought, oh, wait, I haven't untwisted my hair. I had to scramble and get my hair done, right? So just, that's what happens, the things that we have to do. So let's talk about then pay transparency. So we talked a little bit about wages and work, but this really kind of comes into this too, is there are so many pay transparency laws that are going into effect around the country. Now, if you're an employer and you're listening, you should be paying attention, because pay transparency is a thing. And it's happening in a lot of different states. I'm not going to name the states because they're popping up faster than popcorn, which is great. There's also different variations in different places. So you really have to be very clear about when things have been enacted, when they go into force, what it is that you have to do as an employer, what it is you have to be able to allow your employees to do. Because I know there are still companies that are telling their employees that it's against policy to talk about their pay. And it's like, it might be against your policy, but that makes your policy against right, state policy and potentially federal policy. So, you really have to be thinking about that. So let's discuss, right, why yet another law had to be enacted to address pay inequities in the workplace.
Yeah, so I want to start from the beginning because this boggles my mind.
Just done on purpose. Just say it again. It's fine.
No, I'm like, are you gone completely?
No, she was spotlighting you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Stacey. I thought you were gone. Okay. So I wanted to focus on pay inequity. And what boggles my mind is that this discussion has been happening for literally probably 200 years, maybe 400 if we were to go globally. But in 1963, the Equal Pay Act made sure that wage inequities were recognized. And this law was passed, the Equal Pay Act from 1963. And so the Equal Pay Act was passed as an amendment to the Fair Labor Standards Act. And this law states that no employer shall discriminate between employees on the basis of sex by paying wages to employees less than the rate at which he or she pays wages to employees of the opposite sex. So what year is this? We're 2023. This law was passed in 1963. And what we're seeing now, Stacey, is continuous amendments to this law, reinforcement to this law, because last I looked, I think Black women were making like 60 cents, 70 cents to every dollar. Latinas making less than that. And white women making around 70 to 80 cents. The numbers fluctuate to every dollar. But the bottom line is we are not making equal pay for every dollar. And what's interesting to me, Stacey, and I'm going to stop after this, is we have organizations who are saying they're working on it. Have they been working on it since 1963, or What was I know it's
What's the holdup? What's the holdup? Is that the question you were trying to ask? What is the holdup? Because that's the question I want to ask. What is the holdup? The holdup is that if they really wanted to work on it, they would fix it. So there is absolutely nothing that a company has ever done that has said, "Oh, we're working on it. We're getting there." And it's like, if you really wanted to do this, there's actually a video that's going around right now of John Stossel talking about this. No, not John Stossel. I'm terrible with names. Oh my goodness, John. It's John. There's so many Johns. I know.
I didn't see.
Oh well, we'll have to cut that out. We'll cut that part out because I can't remember his name. I literally saw it yesterday. But anyway, I'll just say this instead. There's a lot of information going around right now about what is happening with DEI in the workplace and the importance of it, and the pushback that we are having, right, about actually having these conversations in the workplace. And we have to really, this is when we get deep and we start talking about systemic racism and power and influence. There is a place that we are at right now where what is happening is there is a power shift, right? And we don't want that power shift. And when we get to a place where we're starting to have more information, the more information we have, the less, or I should say, the more difficult it is to keep people quiet and to keep people in their place. And so whenever, our ancestors said, knowledge is power. And absolutely that is so true, because when you have power, when you have knowledge, you do have power. When you have knowledge, you understand that this is something that we can fix and that we actually have the brain power and the wherewithal to make that happen. So that also goes into like our lack of education. Why did we have to endure poor education in our areas as people of color? Because it was known that if you learn, right, then you're going to advance. You're then going to understand that, oh, this is not right. This shouldn't be happening. And so we have to overcome lack of education in our communities as well. It is so, so important that we get to that place of really making sure that our children are educated, but also the lack of inclusion in the education system. And so I'll use an example for my sister who is a teacher, but all the ways that we get excluded, right? So this is going to sound like a really simple example, but follow me here. I called my sister the other day and she said she was in Target buying school uniforms. I said, why are you in Target buying school uniforms? Your son has what he needs. She said, oh, it's not for him. It's for a girl in my class. Why are you buying school uniforms for a girl in your class? Well, because the girl has been dress coded too many times. And when she finally asked the child why she just wouldn't put on the clothes that she needs to wear, it was because she didn't have the money. Her parents didn't have the money to buy her the new uniform. And so what happens when you get dress coded multiple times, you get suspended. So now this child is going to end up missing school because they don't have the money for school uniforms. What sense does that make? Right? Why is that even a policy? We start talking about different policies, right, that are in place that don't make any sense. And here's a policy that is going to stop this Black child from being able to go to school and learn because they don't have the money for a school uniform.
Wow.
So this is how you get excluded, right, in the importance of getting education.
Well, I am so grateful, and I know we're getting close to time, that you talked about the education piece, because here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. Since 1935, we have been covered under the National Labor Relations Act to discuss salary. We have been protected to talk about our salary since 1935. This is not new. We have a constitution. We have all these laws that a lot of times we're not aware of, but we've been protected. We've been protected, just like that example, to wear what we want to wear, right? Or to be, specific about what we want to wear. So I think if nothing else, as we get closer to time, hearing and understanding the law in your states, the law in the country that protect you. And that's the main way that we will get, equity and have equitable wages, equitable, rights at work. So just wanted to get back.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we continue that thread for a minute, right, there, like on a broader scale, when we talk about wealth, right, because you think about at least I know in my household, I'll just speak for myself. We were taught that you get an education, because if you get an education, then you can get a good job. Then if you have a good job, you'll have a decent life. But we don't talk about wealth.
Right.
Because wealth seems like this far off concept. It's like, we're just happy if, you get that good job, you make, 60, 70, 80K, and you can buy a little house, which you used to be able to, but you can't anymore because things are too expensive. But that's a different wealth conversation, right? I won't even go there. But we understand making money.
Yes.
We even understand getting rich a little bit, right? But wealth is generational. And we have had a really difficult time keeping money intergenerational, because one generation might earn a little bit and pass it down to the next generation. But what we didn't do was properly educate that generation about what to do with that money, or with that land, or with that little bit that we got. And so then we have not kept that in our families. And we really, really need to have conversations. I would say anything else we can talk about. It is imparting and educating our children to understand that just getting money is not enough, right? We really need to be thinking about wealth. I thought about this the other day, because I said, I could stop working as hard as I am right now if I wanted to. But the reason I will not is because, again, I've made enough to where, oh yeah, I'm okay. I can work. I could travel a little bit. It's nice. But what that's not going to do is create a legacy for my children.
Right.
It's not going to create the investments and the things that we need to be self-sustaining for generations to come.
So, Stacey, I just want to leave our audience with these last words from a tenured HR person. And a lot of time I think about myself as kind of like Robin Hood, robbing from corporations. And I know that may not come across that positive, but the point is, if you're working in the workplace, if you have a job, whether it's Burger King or Microsoft, they have access to wealth that you need to know about. The 401k plans, the IRAs, the HSAs. If you have no idea what these acronyms are that I'm saying right now, then today your assignment is to go to your job and figure out what money is your employer giving away. They give away money to employees for tax breaks, and they want to give you money. And I promise you, my 401k helped to support the life that I live in terms of building wealth, and you can do the same. So I know some of you are investors and you know about 401ks and all those things, but even for you experienced investors who have you're working in your career, please look into the tools that your providers have. Like, they have financial investment tools and they have financial courses. And so this is where we need to really look and be different. I've worked with so many organizations where when I mentioned the 401k plan and they're giving 50% match, that means for every dollar, they're going to give you 50 cents. They're going to give you money. And that's free money. That is not just an overstatement. And so take the free money, learn what to do with the free money. And this is where we need to change, as I would say, as Black people in general, but this as marginalized people, taking advantage of these opportunities from our employers where they're giving us money, giving and learning how to gain access to money and think like the rich.
Absolutely. And can I just add to that too, that I think not only looking at places where we are leaving money on the table, but also then understanding what to do with that money and when to get an expert. So I'll give you another example of myself. I had a CPA, an expert, right? But you also have to understand they're just people. So the same reason you go to a doctor and you get a second opinion, I had a CPA that was not doing the best. And I went and got a second opinion. I took my tax liability from $20,000 down to zero, because I spoke to a second expert and got a second opinion. And they said, oh no, you should not have to write a check for that kind of money. This is ridiculous. And I was like, that's what I said. I thought the same thing. So we don't do, and I'm going to get into therapy and all of that stuff too, but we've got to get to experts. We have to spend our money wisely in the places that's going to help us to keep our money down the road, keep us healthy, keep money in our pockets, keep us happy, help us with self-care, right? And create legacies for our families.
Yes, and health is wealth. So I'm so glad you threw in the healthy part, because all of these things we talked about today matters not unless you have good health. And so I want to make sure wealth and health make sure you keep those joined together. And so, Stacy, this has been great,
Yes,
as always.
it has
We get
absolutely.
fired up. We start getting fired
I
up.
know.
When we start
We
talking.
could keep talking, but we won't. So I just want to end by saying, we really need communication about this. So if you're struggling, if this seems foreign to you to have these conversations, I need you to get over that. Sorry, you're going to have to get over it. We have to start having the conversations. And we both have resources that will help you. There's lots of free resources. I've seen the link up for learn.reworkwork.com, where we're putting out free resources. Part of the Crown Act, at dove.com/LinkedIn. You can actually sign the petition, and there are 10 free courses that you can go and take that is going to help to open your eyes to some of the things that we're talking about. So please take advantage, again, of free resources and use them. They are at your fingertips.
Yes, and in terms of health and wealth in the workplace, I can help you with that. Visit me on LinkedIn. If you have questions about your 401k or your benefits, your insurance, I can definitely guide you in the right direction. And so reach me at Thea Thatch on LinkedIn too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, this right here, this is a godsend. Industry leader like Comcast obviously has set the bar high of where you can go as a business owner. I'm sure Comcast started as a small business at some point as well. So I'm looking forward to the future and growing and expanding and just becoming an enterprise.
So I'm proud to be here today to share the incredible news that in its 2 years, we've awarded over $110 million in monetary, marketing, and technology grants to 13,000 small businesses nationwide.
I really appreciate those large employers like Comcast, right, for what they do in the District of Columbia as it is, both the services that they provide, our residents and businesses, the people who they employ, who work here, and the people who they employ who live here, but also their recognition, too, that small businesses are the backbone of our local economy.
Yeah, the investment for Comcast Rise, and thank you Comcast Rise for this investment, is going to be major, especially coming out of the pandemic.
Comcast Rise is super important to a small businessman like me because they come in and offer a hand, give you credibility, and also make it a little easier the next go round when you're out there looking for, funding and grant.
Thank you, Comcast.
Thank you, Comcast.
Thank you, Comcast Rise.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Simon. I am the CEO, owner of BTST Services, Black Swan, um, HEAL, which is Holistically Enriching Lives Substance Abuse Company, Simon Enterprises, which owns, invests, and operates several other companies, and also has a real estate holding portfolio. Um, in addition to that, I'm also a part owner of a beauty spa called Selfish Beauty. Um, I didn't always have this level of diversity in business. Obviously, you have to start somewhere. And where I started was my first business ever was I used to draw artwork. So I used to draw in church, um, board in church. So instead of listening to whatever the pastor was trying to educate me on, I decided that, I would draw people that seemed to be paying attention. So you could tell from an early age, I had my priorities right. um, it's nothing I would encourage my kids to do right now. Um, However, I would draw these individuals and draw cartoons and stuff like that. And my mother was a framer, and she would participate in these holiday expos where she would sell her artwork that she framed. And then she began to include my artwork, and my artwork began to be sold. And so I was able to create a product, and that product was able to be sold. Um, Sold mostly to my family members, though, if I'm going to be honest, who still have these pieces of art over top of their toilets in their bathrooms. So I'm not sure if that is a great reflection of the quality of artwork I provided, or if that's was just the only available wall they had to showcase it. Regardless, that kind of springboarded me into business. From that, um, while in high school, I started a clothing company, which was called C Note Clothing. Um, Very, very humble beginning. Um, I used to work at a screen printing shop, and I would print shirts for a friend of mine, an older buddy. And instead of paying me, he allowed me to print my clothing there. So I started what was called C Note, which stands for Creating New Opportunities to Excel. When I created C Note, um, would just print T-shirts and sell them to some friends that I know. But then the idea began to take off more and more and the business began to grow as I as I proceeded to college, and I went to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore and began to sell some of the clothing that I was getting made there. Now I had graduated to embroidery clothing, and people began to take a great liking to it. So much that our clothing was featured on BT Rhapsody's The Basement when Juan Dixon won the national championship. He wore our clothing there. And then we also participated in a concert/fashion show with State Property, which was a group under Rockefeller and under Def Jam, most notably Beanie Siegel is a part of that. So our clothing really began to take off in a demand, so much that I would also drive back home every weekend or a lot of weekends to replenish the clothing that I was selling, or to work with our manufacturers and to drive around in Baltimore because people really enjoyed the stuff and they wanted to buy it. So I decided that I was going to apply for a small business administration loan. And I got the loan. It was for 10K, and I invested $1,000 or like $900 into I went to the police repossession auction and bought a minivan, and the rest, 909,100, I put all into inventory. And I used to drive through every neighborhood, rough area, positive area, whatever, selling these clothing out the trunk of that van. And that then grew into me getting my first store. In this store, it was a converted Bales barn, and I actually used to live in the back of that store. But then I wound up opening another store on York Road in Cold Spring, and another on North Avenue and Monroe. the reason I say all this is that was how I got into business. Like that was my real formal business. I actually won Small Business Entrepreneur of the Year in 2008 for C-Note. But in riding around through the streets of Baltimore selling the clothing, often, I would have these different sweatsuits and colors that I thought were cool. People sometimes didn't buy those. They wanted ones to match the sneakers that they had. They wanted stuff to match a hat that they had, or just new stuff that was coming out. So then we began to tweak our designs so that it fit the demographic of people that we were selling them to, that they were size appropriate, because at this time, everybody was wearing as small as 3X. But then also that we had the product that they were demanding. And I think that is a very, very important principle in business to understand, is that before you can diversify, you need to create an initial business, right? And in an initial business, you need to create a product that people like. So often in our business, sorry, getting ahead of myself, but so from there, working in my clothing store, income was low. Any service business, you always have to put money back into production before you pay yourself. So I wound up taking a job up working at a group home. Then I used to work as a counselor. And then I really developed this passion for mental health and behavioral health that I began to start my own business from there. Went back to Morgan State University, where I transferred to when I got the small business administration for my undergrad. But I got my graduate degree in social work, and I started BTST Services and was able to advance that to becoming a more a mental health organization, which it is today, where we employ over 300 individuals. We have 4 facilities throughout the state of Maryland and service thousands of individuals. From there, we started and added on that add-on service of HEAL. In developing this ecosystem of behavioral health and understanding the community needs, we decided to begin to get into real estate and build out an ecosystem that really help the community. Because the work that we do, we're really working in the community and working to improve the community. So behavioral health and mental health is just only one component of that. Also looking to improve our community is what got me into the restaurants. So restaurants was nothing that I grew up wanting to own, but I heard the needs of the community, and I felt like there was something that I could add to this sector of business. So that's not saying all of that to just bore you with my resume, but I think the common thread in a lot of these things we'll touch on now. Because often a lot of people ask, before starting a business, do you study like a trend? Do you create a business performer? Or do you go with like your sixth sense or gut feeling? And all of the businesses, it took me a while because, I've done a multitude of all of these things. But what I really have done is start businesses to fulfill a void. So the businesses that I started weren't things that I had formal background at the time of starting in, but I started them to fulfill a void, something I thought was missing. So restaurants, there were not a style of dining similar to Black Swan that I was interested in, that I was looking forward to. We're going on these great grand vacations and come home and while on vacation, experience these awesome restaurants that had a high energy, that had good food, that were very stylish places. And while Baltimore is home to some phenomenal restaurants, it wasn't anything like that I was looking to experience with that level of class and sophistication at the same time. So what better way other than, begin to talk to people, network in the field, and decided that, I have the resources, I have the network, I feel like I have a great creative creative brain. Yeah, let's take a stab at creating a restaurant. But to that point, I necessarily didn't study a trend, because most trends in restaurants will tell you not to do it. They will tell you that the restaurants are a very difficult business to operate, which they didn't lie in that trend. It is a difficult business to operate. There's a lot of moving pieces, but it's very rewarding. Um, they would tell you that most businesses close within the first year. Um, they would tell you that people steal from you a lot, that it's, and I'm not saying that their trends are wrong, but I didn't study these trends, and we're open to doing COVID. And I think those trends would tell you that do not get into any business, specifically restaurants during that time. But I think that instead of studying a trend and looking at, hey, these numbers are saying this, and me following the bandwagon of where things are going, I begin to think about, okay, what is missing here and how can I improve upon that? And that's typically what I do. I like to listen to what it is that people want and what are people saying. That's how I gauge the market. I like to do market analysis based on, hey, what is it that you like? Do you share the same aspiration and desire for something like this, similar to me? Or, what is it that you're looking for? What if somebody did this? How would you like that? So I kind of like to touch on engaging with people who would potentially be my consumers and be my customers and find out what they like. With that, when you're looking to, that's when you're looking to start a business. If I'm looking at a business to acquire, then typically I'll look at, obviously what the business is currently doing, the impact that it's having in its market, what are the market trends, where's the growth going towards in this market with other products. But at the end of the day, I can say that I typically have operated off of founded gut. And I'm not saying founded gut like, if you look down at your belly area, but more so founded gut where I trust my gut feeling, but it is also based off of founded information, data. So it might not just be data as it relates to just like the trends and the volumes and the sales and stuff, but it's data based on like different touch points that I've had with people along this brainstorming journey. And that is very important because a lot of people will say, oh, I just operate with instinct and I just had a feeling. Well, that feeling needs to be supported in something, like if everybody is doing A and nobody is selling B, it may be a reason why nobody is selling B. So you want to be very cautious and considerate of not just opening B without doing any level of research. So also, once I have done those things, I've always liked to build out a business plan and a performer. And to me, this is very important because while you have a great idea, a great product and all, the cost to produce the product and the price that you can sell it for may make it not worth the effort. And I say that because a lot of people will say, hey, I got this great idea and I know if I can do this, somebody will buy it. That's cool. But how much does the market really dictate that they will buy it for compared to how much it's going to cost? So you need to be able to figure out how much this product costs to produce, how much this product costs to sell, and at what volume do I need to sell this product at to break even and to make the amount of money that I desire. And if you realize that, if you see that, you might need to sell a tremendous amount of products and you don't know a tremendous amount of people at that time or think that a tremendous amount of people will purchase it, then maybe you might want to think about, business a little different on the products that you're offering. Another question people ask, like, in your business ventures, clothing, mental health, restaurants, what is a common principle or theme that you place in these businesses? So when looking to diversify, obviously, being able to operate one business is a huge success. Being able to operate multiple is excellent, but it requires great systems. You cannot scale your current business or diversify into other businesses if you do not have solid systems. And what I mean by systems is you need to have a policy or a way, a professional, strategic, concrete way of doing things that allows these businesses to operate with you a part of them or with you outside of them, because obviously you cannot duplicate yourself, um, and you cannot, and there's only so many hours in a day. So being able to wanting to operate multiple businesses requires that you have some level of systems that are put in place that all of these other businesses follow. And then you have touch points, you have dashboards that allow you to be able to check in on these businesses at a glance, figure out what's happening, develop your own trends, and be able to operate like that. Another thing that I would say when looking to diversify and a common practice in our business is that you have to hire great people, and not just hire great people, you have to work with great people. Don't be afraid of partnership. I know partnership, a lot of people speak badly about partnership, and they will lead you to believe that partnership is bad, it's hard working with other people, whatever, the things that people say are. I think that, instead of thinking about how hard is it to work with other people, we should begin with thinking about how hard is it to work with me? What are the things about myself that I bring to the table as well? And what is it that I would be looking for in a partner? Because just to have a partner it's good to say, yes, you can, it's good to have somebody to potentially share in the financial burden with you, but they should also bring some level of skill set to the business. And for some, financial skill set and having that ability is all that some people need. But having another partner that can be your yin to your yang. So if you're a very creative person, having somebody that can put systems and policy and operations in place to support the creativity that you operate within. Um, the last principle, another thing that I would say, again, back just doubling down on that point, is once you hire good people, let people do the job that you hired them for. Do not come in and boss the people that you've paying this significant amount of money for their expertise. Have collaborative conversations. Allow them to help engineer and work through whatever the issues are, or engineer a system of success. You can come into the project with a creative idea of something that you're thinking about, but make sure that you toss it around and you guys develop that thing together and get out the way and let them operate. And I think a lot of people ask, Chris, well, you've started a lot of these businesses. What is next? What is the next business or market that you'll look to diversify into? And again, I thought about this. Sometimes it just comes to you. It's nothing that I set out and plan and say, hey, this is what I want to do, just because, as again, and some people, that's their business model, where is a void in the market? Where can I capitalize on? For example, porta pots. I don't think anybody's in love with a porta pot, but somebody has to provide them. But for me, again, I think that the businesses I've started have operated out of where's a void, what is missing, how can this improve my life, how can this improve the lives of other people that I know who are having similar concerns. So I can't really say where that is just right now. I know I'm looking to continue to scale and the current businesses that we're in, opening up more restaurants, increasing our footprint as it relates to behavior and mental health. But I think what I think about and what you should think about is, even within your business, what is it that you can create that will supplement or help your business? So if you're a restaurateur, what is a product that you utilize often that maybe you can now provide on the side as a company and even sell to your restaurant and others' restaurants? It could be a seasoning. It could be some technology software that allows you to keep and track inventory better. For my mental health business, it could be, telehealth software or whatever else, whatever other product that we use. It could be a copy machine. Wherever I find the need that will help the businesses that we are operating in and have access to bring it to market in some capacity, so that I have not only the idea, but the ability and the resources and connections to bring that product to market, is where I feel like my next business opportunity and opportunity to diversify will come. So to conclude, being an entrepreneur is great. Diversifying is great. It is a very doable thing. Make sure that you have great systems in place. Again, I'm not by any means the smartest person. So I feel like if I can do it, there are tons of people that can do it. The biggest thing, have belief in yourself. Have belief in what it is that you do, the products that you're offering, and listen to the customer. The customer is always right. So I wish I could share more. I hope that this was helpful in some capacity. Feel free to reach out to me, contact me. Please come and patronize our businesses. I'm always open for discussion and open to helping. Thank you.
They're somewhere around here.
Yes.
But it would be remiss of us if we didn't show some love to our sponsors who help us make events like tonight possible. So up first, we have Dr. Destiny Simone Ramjohn, who is with Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield. Could you please come up? Thank you so much. Dr. Ramjohn, can you tell us why it is so important that organizations like your own partner with organizations like the AFRO to help them both progress?
Absolutely. Good evening. Destiny Simone Ramjohn, proud to serve as Vice President of Community Health and Social Impact with Care First. I want to first say your viewers at home are so lucky, but you are missing out on incredible energy right here in the room, and we couldn't be more proud. So why are we here? The fact is that racial inequities remain one of the most pressing issues of our time. McKinsey estimates that the $220 billion is what it would take to close the racial wealth gap in America today. And that is unacceptable. And so what we know is that the importance of closing that wealth gap will also close the disparities in health that we see in maternal and child health, that we see in behavioral health, and more. So what Care First says is, how do we examine community partnerships with strong organizations like Dr. Tony Draper and the AFRO, and do so in ways that close the gap, the racial ethnic wealth gap, and do so in places in Baltimore and beyond. I also want to say community partnerships are essential, and no one said it better than Dr. Draper herself, who said, when people are healthy economically, socially, spiritually, communities are healthy, and we couldn't agree more. So thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Ramsey Harris from PNC Bank. Mr. Harris, step on down. It's your turn. All right. So first, tell us what you do with PNC Bank, and then tell us why it's so important for institutions like banks to partner with Black businesses.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I said good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
It is just a privilege for us to be here. We're excited about this event, this third anniversary of the Black Business Matters Expo, bridging the racial wealth gap through work, wages, and wealth. My name is Ramsey Harris. I am the Senior Vice President and Community Development Banking Market Executive for PNC for the Greater Maryland market, located right here in Charm City, beloved B-More. I was born and raised Edmondson Village. Just want to plug that West Side. Yes, sir, certified. And what I do for the bank, I oversee our division that is responsible for redeveloping and revitalizing historically disinvested and underserved communities and neighborhoods all throughout the state of Maryland. We do so by way of affordable housing initiatives, neighborhood and revitalization and stabilization efforts, financial education, community service, workforce development, and small and minority business advocacy. And so to answer your second question, the reason why it is so very important for us to partner with our beloved friends at the AFRO as we collectively work together to empower and uplift small businesses, particularly Black-owned businesses, is we recognize that if we're going to create and build generational wealth and really bridge the racial wealth gap, we're going to do so in two primary ways, through home ownership and entrepreneurship. And so at PNC, we are very much committed to ensuring that Black-owned businesses and Brown-owned businesses have the tools, resources, and access to capital that they need to enjoy longevity in entrepreneurship and to be in it for the long haul. We recognize statistically that a lot of small businesses that start out, within 2 years, they have to shut their doors. And unfortunately, a large percentage of those enterprises are Black or Brown owned. And so we're at PNC strategically putting our resources together to be proactive in ensuring that going forward, our enterprises are positioned to survive and thrive. And so I'll stop there because I'm also a third generation pastor and I don't want to start tuning up.
This event ends at 7.
But it is again, an honor for us to be here. And I brought one of my colleagues with me here, Mr. Philip Allen, who's one of our business banking relationship managers. So if anyone in the room afterwards would like to speak with us more about how we are intentionally empowering Black-owned businesses, Philip and I would love to have that dialogue with you. And again, Dr. Draper and Miss Lenora and the wonderful, phenomenal staff at AFRO, we love you. We're looking forward to doing more with you. And it's just an honor for us to be here. Thank you and have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Make sure that you find Mr. Harris. Make sure that you find all of the different resources that are in this room tonight and take advantage of them. All right, we have one more sponsor come out. We have two more, actually. Next, we have the new head Associated Black Charities, Miss Chrissy Thornton. Come on. Give her a round of applause. Thank you for joining us tonight, Ms. Thornton. Can you tell us why it is so important for Black charities, for Black nonprofits, for Black businesses to come together, sit at the same table, and network and connect with each other?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having us. Associated Black Charities is happy to consider the AFRO one of our strongest partnerships. I am super excited to be the new leader of this organization, and we are doing so much for Baltimore, Maryland, and hopefully beyond Maryland. To answer your question, Black women are starting businesses astronomically at rates higher than any other demographic. We have the power and the position to make significant economic impact. At the same time, Black-owned businesses, Black-led organizations continue to be the least resource. And because of that, it creates an ecosystem that's very competitive. And it makes it feel like collaboration is not the avenue and the road that we should take, which is absolutely not the case. We know that in addition to having issues finding funding and finding capital, that businesses that are Black run, organizations that are Black led also suffer from a lack of support. And so when you don't have support in the form of mentorship, and when you don't have the support in the form of networking and having a pool of people to lean on, it can be as detrimental as not having the other resources. And so one of the things we believe at Associated Black Charities is in the power of collaboration and partnership. And so what you will see us doing to help heal this, as I'm new and I am ready to mingle, we will try to heal some of this disconnectedness by convening, which is something that we do very, very well. We want to convene other Black-led organizations. We want to create a pathway of affinity groups for Black-owned businesses. You will see us convene Black CEOs specifically in Baltimore because a mentorship that is not available must become available. We must be willing to teach others what we know to empower them to do the things that we're doing well as well. So thank you for having us.
Thank you for that. All right.
All right. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we have Miss Katie Truitt and Miss Renee Beck from the United Way of Central Maryland. Hi, how are you? I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you once also for joining us. So, in partnering with a Black-owned business, what is the impact you make on both the business and the community?
And thank you everyone for having us here. The number of people who have mentioned our CEO, Frank Baker, to me tonight is phenomenal. So thank you all for sharing. I'm going to text them to how many people say hi. So we are partnering. A lot of our work at United Way of Maryland is in health, economic advancement, housing, and education. So obviously economic advancement aligning really well with work and wages. And we are always looking to support other nonprofits, entrepreneurs. We have a Change Maker Challenge as well as some grants that we manage. And we're always looking to support small businesses, other organizations that are Black led. And Associated Black Charities is a great partner and friend of ours.
Thank you so much for the give a round of applause for all of the sponsors, the people who made tonight actually happen. Now, we've been talking a lot about business, and you know, business is important, but this is a Black woman, and we got to
be a little Black.
entertainment.
Yeah.
We got to have a little bit of creativity come to the stage. Give a round of applause for Miss Gabby Simone. She's going to bless the stage. Come on down, come on down. Give her a round of applause, y'all.
Hey, Miss Gabby, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. So we recently saw you on, well, we've seen you a little bit everywhere, but we also saw you especially on the Jennifer Hudson show. Can you talk to us about that experience, what that was like?
Well, that experience was absolutely surreal. Just being one of my idols, being somebody that I looked up to, and you know that we all know. We watched Dreamgirls before. We all know her, and just being on stage with her and having a conversation with her was just surreal. And I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so
I have a
much.
question for you. So we are at a Black Business Expo right now. Can you talk about how important it is to know the business side of the music business of being a creator? Why is it important to have that business in addition to the talent?
Yeah, so it is absolutely important to know because you know it's not all about music. You have to know just money. You have to know what to put out and things like that. You know you have to know how to put it out. And as an independent artist, I'm still learning. I'm 21, so I'm still learning and I'm still growing in the business aspect of it. And I also just started my own business. So I'm dipping my hands in everything at this point. I'm doing merch. I'm doing there's a whole bunch of things. And I'm right here from Baltimore. I graduated from Emerson. So I'm just big on community outreach and just, just growing, and teaching and just, giving back to the communities. All right.
Absolutely.
Can we just get like one or two little notes? Oh, please.
Just a
Come
little
on,
something,
y'all.
something.
Come on, so she's more encouraged. Give it a
I'm gonna say
little
not
bit,
too
just a
much,
little
just
bit.
something to grace.
So I sang a Aretha Franklin song.
Come on, you can sing it here.
You're on the Apple stage now, so let's I'm gonna do a little bit. We'll do an acapella if that's all right with y'all. Look now on the morning rain. Yeah. I used to feel so uninspired when I knew I had to face another day. Lord, it made me feel so tired. Before the day I met you, my life was so unkind. But you're the key to my peace of mind. And all you make me feel, you make me feel, you make me feel like a natural.
All right, y'all not clapping enough for my taste. Y'all gotta give her a round of applause.
Listen,
Come
I know we
on.
said just a few notes. You left us wanting more. Where can we find you on social media? Where can we contact you?
So you can follow me on all social media platforms at _Gabby Simone. And I'm also releasing my first single this May. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. It's just about self-love and just loving yourself. Nobody can love you better than you love yourself. You gotta tell these people that. So that's what this song is about.
What's the title of your single?
It's called Better.
All right,
And will it be available on all streaming platforms? Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's get back to this expo. We have a lot more to learn. We have more speakers coming to the stage. So join us for the second half. And thank you for sticking with us.
My name is Felicia Brown, Senior Advisor for Financial Resilience. I lead AARP's Small Business Entrepreneurship Initiative, focused on helping older adults understand how to launch, grow, and manage a business or a side hustle. In 2021, the White House reported a record number of business applications, 5.4 million. 44% of those represented older adults, as well as many of them being people of color. That's a historic 20% increase that occurred at one time. COVID served as an opportune time for many Americans to examine their current circumstance, believe in themselves, and take chances that they may not have done before. So you might ask, why is AARP in this space? Because it simply makes sense. We are not only helping people to realize their future while focusing on disparities that exist among people of color, and we're helping them realize the possibilities. And that's why AARP is here. AARP has a plethora of resources to help you get started, grow, and manage your business. During COVID, we launched the Small Business Resource Center for the 50 plus, where we develop and curate tools and resources. We have action plans, work plans, offer advice from experienced founders through our Meet the Founder series, and have developed a listing of resources specifically for Black-owned businesses. In addition, We have Starting and Growing Your Business webinar series, a listing of national organizations that offer programming, training, and funding for various stages of a business. We work with national organizations and thought leaders to bring important research about the value of entrepreneurship and thoughtful discussions to you. And we also have the Freelance Resource Center, managed by the AARP Foundation for people who are looking to monetize their hobby or skill. And if that's not enough, we just launched the AARP Small Business Newsletter. So regardless of where you are on your journey, we have something for you at www.smallbizrc.org to download information and to listen to and get advice from seasoned business owners. And to stay up to date, sign up for our newsletter at www.aarp.org/small biz, that's small biz newsletter, to receive our quarterly newsletter where it's chock full of tools and resources, interviews, funding opportunities, and news you can use. So we look forward to seeing you at the Small Business Resource Center for the 50 Plus. And now over to my colleague, Kimberly Ayers, who will talk about our AARP Supplier Diversity Program.
Thanks so much, Felicia. Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly Ayers, and I serve as AARP's Director of Supplier Diversity within our Procurement and Contract Management team. I'm responsible for managing and fostering partnership opportunities between AARP, our internal stakeholders, our procurement team, and most importantly, small and diverse suppliers, in order to drive an increased awareness of small and diverse businesses enterprise-wide. As you may know, AARP is one of the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering Americans 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With nearly 38 million members across the US and its territories, AARP works to strengthen communities and advocate for what matters most to our 50 plus members, their families, while focusing on health, security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. AARP procures goods and services from a variety of commodities, but specifically the following 8: general supplies and operations, HR, health and welfare, IT and telecom, marketing, media and advertising, paper, print and postage, professional services, real estate and facilities, travel, meeting, and events. One of the ways that you can qualify to be a small and diverse supplier within our program is to show AARP that you have a certified business that is at least 51% owned by the person whose daily business operations are managing and controlling that company. We work with a variety of certification categories: minority, women, veteran, disabled and service disabled, LGBTQ+, small disadvantaged, hub zone, and small businesses. If you're interested in trying to do business with AARP and our supplier diversity team, and you meet the eligibility requirements that I just mentioned, please email us at supplierdiversity@aarp.org. That's supplier diversity, SUPPLIERDIVERSITY, one word, at aarp.org. with a copy of your capability statement. And please also register with our STARS portal, which you will also be able to find on our website on aarp.org. Once we've determined that your capability and service offering could be a fit within one of those 8 categories that I mentioned, we will reach out and have a further conversation to discuss where you could potentially fit within the AARP organization. If you have any questions at all, please, again, contact us at supplierdiversity@aarp.org, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you, help you, and see how you could fit in the AARP program. Now, over to my colleague, Martin Booker.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here to talk to you about AARP's savings and planning programs and resources. So AARP, my name is Martin Booker. I am the program manager of financial resilience at AARP. So focusing on all things personal finance. Our focus is making sure that that not only will you make money, but you can also manage your money well with all of the resources that we have at AARP. So the first resource that I'm going to tell you about today is our AARP Money Map. We know that one of the most important things is to be able to manage your finances in any stage or in any circumstance. So with our AARP Money Map, one of the first things that you can do is you can focus on unplanned expenses. If you have an unplanned expense, like an unexpected medical bill, an unexpected major home repair, then our unplanned expense module will walk you through what to do in those situations. We none of us like an unplanned bill, but in that case, we're going to make sure that you're taken care of and you know exactly what to do next. Our Money Map tool also has a debt manager function. So if you're in a position where you may have acquired more debt than you want at the moment and you have to pay that down, then work with AARP so that we can help you pay that debt down. We can help you get it to a manageable space to reduce or eliminate that debt. This tool also focuses on savings. So we have a savings planner within this tool. You have to take a big trip, you're saving up to make a big purchase or even a small purchase. So just kind of get your emergency fund in place. And AARP has a way to walk you through how to save for that expense and prepare for that expense, as well as a budget builder. If you're in a position, we know the budget is the foundation of money management. It's one of the most important things that you have to do. So if you're in a position where you're ready to start budgeting, just make sure that your money's in place. Then use AARP's Money Map. Get your money. You'll just go to www. Again, that's Money Map. Again, that's Money Map. What I want to tell you about is our Social Security until we're in our Social Security until we're in our. We have to remember Social Security. We have to remember Social Security death benefit. There's also a Social Security disability benefit. So people have been taking advantage of Social Security for years, starting as early as childhood. So we don't want to just ignore Social Security as if it's only a benefit that we focus on in retirement. So if you go to our Social Security Resource Center, you'll be able to watch videos. You'll be able to look at articles. There's a Social Security question and answer tool. We even answer questions live with Social Security experts if you have a really important or really complex situation. So you want to take advantage of our Social Security Resource Center to learn everything that there is to learn about Social Security when you need it. So take advantage of it now. Start to look, start to learn, and start to plan, because Social Security is a part of your retirement universe. It's not just one benefit that you'll focus on when you're of age. So you can visit our Social Security Resource Center at aarp.org/Social Security. So take advantage of that now. Start to learn, start to prep, because it's a part of your retirement. And we want to think about retirement every day that we're at work. Also, The next tool that I'll mention is our AARP interview and advisor tool. This is a very important financial tool because for you who's working on your business, the person who is getting your personal finances in order, what you may want to focus on or what you may want to think about is having an expert work with you. And in that case, our AARP interview and advisor tool is a tool that's going to help you become more confident and more prepared when it's time for you to find a financial professional. This is a phenomenal tool for finding financial professionals and just making sure that you have what you need so that you're protected against working with the wrong professional and you're informed in finding the right one. This tool is very interactive. It's very fun. It's a great way to find an advisor. And the tool is going to first walk you through the gold standard of finding the right type of financial professional. What are the things that you want to know? What are the credentials that you want that professional to have? And how do you want them to engage you? What's the appropriate standard for that professional? Next, we're going to walk you through how to prepare for a meeting with a financial professional. We don't want to send you in there without the resources, the tools, and all of the things, all of the know-how as far as what you want to ask and what you want to talk to that professional about. So we're going to prep you with a checklist to make sure that you know exactly what to ask. And then we're going to make sure that after your meeting, we have a standard and a rubric for you to follow through just to make sure that that professional gave you everything that you need. We know that everyone knows exactly what to tell you if they have to sell you something, right? So we want to make sure that they didn't just sell you something that you didn't need, but they gave you exactly what you needed to work in your best interest. So following that meeting, you'll go back into our tool and just test it against our rubric to make sure that you got exactly what you needed. And lastly, in this 4-part tool is a follow-up email. If you still have some lingering questions, we want to make sure that you can send some really appropriate questions that we vetted and we made sure we're prepared for you to send to that professional to make sure that they can answer everything that you need in writing. So we're telling you that when you go and talk to a professional, you're interviewing this financial professional, but you're not signing up that day. We want to make sure that you think about it, you sleep on it, and that you ask all the appropriate questions. So that's AARP's interview and advisor tool. You want to take advantage of that and take a look at that tool to make sure that you're prepared when working with an advisor. And that tool can be found at campaigns.aarp.org/interview and advisor. That's a very important tool. It's really important for all of us as we work on our businesses, grow our businesses, and bring in the right professional team to work with us. Now, some other things that are upcoming for AARP. We have a phenomenal retirement program that we've created, and it's going to roll out really soon. And it's called thisispretirement.org. I'm sorry. This is pretirement.org. The important thing about this tool is for all of us, we start to think about retirement when we're getting close to it. But imagine starting to focus on retirement long before you actually retire. You're making sure that you're putting your assets are allocated the right way, that you're putting the right contributions into your accounts, that you're setting yourself up mentally and emotionally for retirement even before you get there. So we want to make sure that you thought about this financially, emotionally, and mentally. So This is Pretirement is here for you. We want you to think about retirement every day that you show up to work. So you want to take advantage of this tool that's going to launch early summer with AARP. So be on the lookout for that. And now, with all of these tools I just mentioned, it may be hard to remember them all or write them all down. So I want you to go to aarp.org/money. aarp.org/money. This is where you can find all of our tools, all of our videos, all of our articles about any topic that you can think of that's money related. And all of them are not for 50 plus. A lot of them you can read in your 30s, in your 40s. We want to prepare you because at some point we're all headed towards retirement. We're all moving towards retirement. So we want to prepare for that. So start reading now, start consuming our content now. It's very important because then you'll be better prepared when you reach that day. Also on that website, you'll be able to find things like our AARP calculators. You can find our retirement calculator. You can find our Social Security calculator. And with using these calculators, you can start to project the amounts that you're going to need to retire successfully. So, if you prepare for that now, then you'll be able to reach that number at a much older, with much more confidence. Our AARP retirement confidence surveys show that more than 60% of people feel like they are not prepared for retirement. That's not going to be you because you're going to start to consume our content now. So as you can see, AARP has something for everyone. We're prepared to serve everyone. So we want you to take advantage of all that we have, regardless of where you are, what stage you're in financially, what stage you're in your business. Start to use AARP now to prepare yourself for the best life that you could possibly live in retirement. Thank you.
You alone know what tomorrow brings. In a world where few hearts survive.
And I know it's the way I feel. And if it's real, I'm going to keep it alive. 'Cause the road, said the road is long, and there are mountains in our way. But still we climb higher every day. Lord, lift us up where we belong, where the eagles fly, or the mountain high. Lord, lift us up where we belong, up from the world we know, where the clear wind blows. See some hang on to what used to be, living their lives looking behind.
All we have is you right now. And our lives are in you to find.
'Cause the road, said the road is long, and there are mountains in our way, but still we climb higher every day. Lord, lift us up where we belong, where the eagles fly on a mountain high. Lord, lift us up where we belong, up from the world we know, where the clear winds blow. See, time passes by, and sometimes we'll cry, and He'll wipe every tear from your eyes. Lord, lift us up, Jesus, where the eagles fly. the clear winds blow. Lord, lift us up where we where the eagles fly on the mountain high. Lord, lift us up where we I want the Lord to lift me up from the world we know, where the clear winds blow. Lord, lift us up where we belong. Oh, Lord, Lord, lift us up where we belong. We belong.
It's 1 o'clock.
Greetings. My name is Troy Lamel Stovall. I serve as the CEO of TEDCO, and we couldn't be more happy to participate in the AFRO's Black Business Matters Expo 2023. At TEDCO, the idea and the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DE&I, is a fabric of what we do both internally and with the ecosystem. We'll have dedicated resources and efforts to create a culture of belonging, while also embracing and leveraging those differences, both within our organization at TEDCO and within the many businesses that we support in this ecosystem here in Maryland. So please come to our website, www.tedcomd.com. That's www.tedcomd.com for a ton of information on our resources, our funding, and our support for the ecosystem. Look forward to seeing everybody at the Business Expo.
The District of Columbia has become one of the least affordable places in the country to live. In the last 10 years, we lost 15% of our African American population. Where we live was a 5-year commitment by Wells Fargo Bank to invest more deeply in the District of Columbia.
We were given $1.6 billion and given a blank canvas on how we should disperse that.
$1.6 billion.
I think represents the seriousness that the leaders of our company took to being partners with the community.
We worked with CDFIs. We had an advisory council. It was a very collaborative effort.
Wells Fargo has been active in the Washington, D.C. area for over 100 years. Where we live demonstrates that we're eager to listen and learn from the communities that we serve and be a partner in providing innovative solutions to some of the systemic problems that we see our neighbors facing.
need to see that one thing, one moment can change your life and your business. Dr. Draper?
Impeccable.
Yeah.
We are so pleased that you joined us either live or on live stream. This has been a wonderful opportunity to network and to connect. I met a whole bunch of new folks, found out about businesses that I didn't know about, and they found out about the Afro. And so, what a pleasure! I want to give a shout out to Nicole Kirby. Thank you, Nicole, for all of your help. Event planner extraordinaire. I want to give a shout out to the tech team, those who are behind the cameras and behind the mics. Thank you for all of that. A big shout out to the caterer. If you were live, you know that was a highlight of this afternoon. I can't thank the Afro team enough. Thank you. Our on-air personalities were great, and so we thank you for that. And I want to tell everybody, you'll have to pick up next week's Afro so you can see the pictures from this wonderful, wonderful event. And so thank you again for being with us for the third Afro. We're looking forward to next week because Black businesses matter, not just during a particular month, a particular day, or a particular event. But Black businesses matter all of the time. Let's support one another. Let's create some Black millionaires
And billionaires.
and billionaires. Let's support one another and let's teach our young people about the importance of entrepreneurship and financial literacy and everything else. Thanks to our sponsors for joining us on today. Thank you for your support. We absolutely appreciate you. And if I forgot anybody, remind me and we'll thank you in next week's paper. Take care. God bless.
Good night. Is that it? It's a wrap.